Hi everyone. I hope you guys are doing good. Please let me know in the comments if I'm audible to you, and then we can start with the session. I'm already seeing so many comments for Anmol and his journey for Google. So this is very inspiring. So many people have already joined in before timings, and you guys are commenting. That's really good. Please stay tight till the end because the session is going to be very helpful for everyone who's aspiring to get into Google or any of the top notch companies. The session will be beneficial for you. Also, you can put down all the queries that you have in the comment section so that we can take them up at the end of the session once we are done with the Q&A. So we'll surely take them up. Yeah, just waiting for a minute or two so that more people can join in, and then we can start with the webinar. Thank you guys for letting me know that I'm audible. I am already excited for this because there are lots of comments coming in. Okay, so without wasting any time, I would like to tell you about the guest for the day, which I'm sure you must have already noticed by now. It's Anmol Varma, and he's recently got selected with Google. So this webinar is very special for us, and I'm sure for Anmol as well, because there was this particular post which went completely viral on LinkedIn, and it had like 14,000 reactions. And from that post, we actually got onto Anmol's profile, and that's how we asked him to come to this webinar and help all the students who are participating in this, and those who are aspiring to get into Google and other top notch companies. So the LinkedIn post, which I'm sure when we like get him to the stream, he'll tell you more about the post and what was it all about. But then it was the starting was very funny, and the ending was okay Google, set my title to nooglers. So nooglers are the people who are new to Google. I'm really hoping that everybody who's watching this session, you guys, if you are preparing to get into Google, you all become nooglers really soon. And a little about Anmol. He's priorly, before getting into Google, he's worked with McKinsey and Flipkart, and now he's started with Google. So I'll just call him to the stream, and yeah, there are a lot of comments which are distracting me, but I'll just call him to the stream so that he can tell you more about himself, and you guys can know everything in detail. Hi Anmol, how are you?
Hi, Sidra. How are you? Thank you.
I'm good.
Thank you
First of
for
all,
all the
congratulations for
lovely.
getting selected with Google. And I, along with a lot of people, are very excited to have you here.
Thank you so much, Sidra. Like, it's a pleasure for me as well to come here and share my experience.
Okay, great. So, Anmol, can you tell, before starting with everything, I just want to know how your post went viral on LinkedIn and what was it up? What was it all about?
So essentially, it wasn't something very unique or special. It was just that you see a lot of posts on LinkedIn where people do communicate things like I got offer from such and such company, like multiple companies, and I'm finally accepting. So I had only applied in Google, so I had no intention of switching. But since it was Google and the opportunity came up, so I thought of presenting it in a way where it went like I have not got selected in Amazon, Facebook, and Meta, but I did get selected in Google. So, like from there, I think a lot of people started appreciating it, and then it's reached like went across people, and then people liked it and shared it. I think that
Okay.
was the main key from where it all started.
Okay, great. That's really good. So how Google got to know about you, and how did you land in your current role that you are in right now?
So essentially, I had applied in Google long time back, somewhere in January or February 2021, And then I had even forgotten that I had applied in Google, because like it's Google, so like there are a lot of constraints on your resumes and how they do the filtering and who they reach out to back. But in August, I think they reached out to me. A HR reached out, and she said that she went through my profile in the internal portal, and it looks quite good. So will I be interested in an opportunity in Google? So I was a little bit nervous as well, because I had no clue how like randomly a LinkedIn message comes up in your inbox, and it's like, hey, yeah, you have an interview with Google, so when can we schedule it, sort of a thing. But then yeah, it started there, and then all the round went, and then finally, like right now, everything is nice. So yeah.
Yeah, must be really overwhelming for you. But it's a very cliche question. But how do you feel right now? Like you've been selected to Google, and it's not a very like it's not something that every other engineer gets. But I'm sure every engineer hopes to get into Google. So how are you feeling right now?
Right now it's all like I really do pinch myself 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, and evening, and it feels like it's still a dream going on, and like I just hope that this dream never ends.
Right. Okay. Coming to my next question, how many interviews to expect at Google if someone's preparing for it? Then how many interviews can they expect, and how did you particularly prepare for them?
So essentially, the first round is the screening round, where the level of questions is a little medium-ish. Like it's not very tough. So that's a screening round, and it gives you a good essence of how the whole process is gonna be. Like where are you gonna write code? Like how is your approach and how your thinking should be? How are things like communicating well with the interviewer? How to understand the problem statement? So there is one screening round. Post that, you have 4 rounds of DSA. Those are technically DSA rounds, 45 minutes each. Generally, 2 questions is what they ask. They also might ask one question if it's a very hard one, but generally it's 2 questions. And post that, so in Google, they don't have as such a behavioral round. They like to call it the Googliness check round, where they assess things like how a team player you are, will you be collaborative, what is your general approach in life apart from being technically good or bad. So once you clear the screening round, if you don't screw up, you'll go through the entire process. It's not a knockout, as in if you don't do good in the second round or the third round, then all your other rounds are cancelled. It's not like you go through the whole process. So even if in case, try not to, but in case you do not do well in one of the rounds, just always have that hope that you can always do very excellent in the, like you can do it outstandingly well in the next round, and maybe cover a bit for it. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. Great. Um, like we all know, resume plays a very important role when it comes to landing a job. So, can you tell us how was your resume different from the rest? Because HRs do not have a lot of time. They just skim
Yep, yep.
through the topics and choose the candidate. So what was that one thing on your resume that you think they must have they must have said that okay, we want this guy in our company?
I don't think like there is essentially any secret to that, but yeah, few things that I've observed over years, like having made my first resume in college, where you write hobbies and other things, and now when you do your resume, what I have seen is that two things, like including your LinkedIn profile, if you maintain one, including your blogs portfolio link, or even your GitHub account links, if you maintain that, like wherever you maintain a portfolio, that essentially represents more than a piece of paper. Like on GitHub, you can have repos which can show what do you work on. You actively contribute in open source, which is again a very good thing. On LinkedIn, if you share your profile, you have a proper profile, you maintain, you have connections, you are active, you have that in your resume. Apart from that, having projects, so I personally do love to contribute to open source. So in my resume, a lot of people did suggest me not to do that, because generally resumes are considered like the ideal length is 1 page, but then I wanted to include few of my personal projects which I have contributed in open source, and a lot of the people also contribute. So have space for your company projects and your personal projects, and while defining the projects also, instead of vaguely defining it what the project is, go like define in a line or two what your role in the project was, so that whoever is seeing knows what you are capable of in what that particular thing does.
Okay, okay, cool.
So things like
Uh,
these,
yeah,
yeah.
okay. So, are there two different processes for hiring interns or hiring graduates, or is there a one single process which candidates go through, maybe interns or maybe full-time employees?
The number of rounds again, for interns and for full-time employees, for both of them, with Google, the DSA part remains the same. Maybe the number of rounds I think are different, because for interns you don't you like people just out of college, you can't expect them to have so much of depth, as in they are just trying to learn right now, they are just starting, so the number of rounds are a little less, but apart from that I think the overall expectation is still the same, that you
Okay,
should be
okay,
intelligent enough and you should have good problem solving skills and a great command on DSA.
okay. So, Anmol, what do you think Google is exactly looking for when it comes to candidates?
Okay, now this so exactly, essentially Google, or any other company apart from Google as well, any good company. So a lot of people I see focusing on languages, like I know this particular language. I think they don't look for people who are like super expert of some particular language. What they essentially look is what your thought process is when a problem comes, what, like how do you start thinking. Essentially it's not, they don't expect you to know answer of each and everything, like that's not possible, and that isn't the expectation as well. The whole point is how you start thinking, how you collaborate, how you share your thoughts, and if you get someone others like if someone suggests you something, how do you take in that point, do you use that constructively. And then again, having great, like again great data structures is one thing which helps them narrow this down, because it can help you narrow that if a particular person will have a good problem solving skill or not. So essentially that is why they do rely on DSA. But essentially the overall task is that how you think and how you approach a problem, and like will you help the team or not, because there are times, and I personally know people who are great individually, but when you put them in a team, the overall team velocity might drop down a bit. So things like these is not what Google or any big company would want.
Okay, okay. There's a comment that I can see right now, and it concerns the topic we're discussing. Shashwat wants to know, does Google hire off campus freshers?
Does Google hire? So, Shashwat, I can find out, but from what I know, off-campus hires are not done as such. They do have some programs or competitions as well, hackathon sort of stuff, where you can participate and then you can prove your worth, and from there they might take you. But as such, having an interview directly off campus, I'm not sure. Again, I'll find this out, but as of now, I don't think this happens.
Okay, okay. So coming back to my next question, can non-engineers also apply to Google, and what are the roles for them apart from SDE? Someone coming from non-technical background, if you have any idea about that.
So again, like if someone coming from, so that I'll take this in two parts. Essentially, someone coming from a non ITCS background and trying to get into a developer role, definitely that is like definitely he can do that. There is no foundation as such on what your graduation field was, you should be good. That's it. uh, in some other roles, I think of course Google, then again it comes down to a lot of different levels. There are support teams. Then right now, since Google, I know specifically for Google Cloud essentially, because right now that domain is like burst, like expanding like a very big bubble, because everyone is going on cloud. A lot of big companies, even few I've worked with, are going on cloud from having traditional their own data centers. So they do hire a lot of people for the cloud team essentially. And then again, so yeah, like people who are from non technical background, who don't essentially want to code, there are options. Definitely there are a lot of options that are there. How much and what is not, I'm sure, because I haven't looked into that yet essentially, but yeah, there are opportunities definitely.
Okay, okay, that's good. Also, I wanted to know if Google hires through referrals, or do they consider referrals at all, or they just go in the bin?
I don't think that happens at Google. So I think referrals, when you do refer at Google, referrals are taken very seriously, especially from people. If you drop a ping to your, like, whoever the recruiter or the manager is who is recruiting, if you can just ping them, and I think they do take it very seriously. I have heard cases where people have been reached out within 4 days. Like, so if I today put in your referral, I think the next Monday they got a call, and then henceforth forward. But yeah, referrals are taken like very seriously at Google.
Okay. Anil, what are those three things that you think students should not do in a Google interview? They should not say, or they should not do.
Okay, three things. Yeah, yeah. So the one thing definitely, which even I did, like the first in my second interview, even I did that, is that the rounds are 45 minutes. That's a hard stop at 45. Like, it's not exam where you are writing and sir, please 2 minutes. They stop at 45 minutes. So with all that time crunch, and you have two questions where the person will come, he'll tell you the question, you have to ask questions, get clarity, and then do everything in 45 minutes. So in that time crunch, a lot of times, as soon as you complete, it's your instinct that okay sir, like done, is what you tell the interviewer. But the people who are there on the other side, like, they are even better. So as soon as you say done, and if there is even a small, like, a comma or a semicolon missing in your code, they're going to like point that immediately. So even if it's a time crunch, once you do, definitely go through what you have written, and like a very fast dry run sort of a thing, so that you don't miss anything. Because having that 1 minute extra in time is not that bad, compared to having a error in your code. So do go through your code, don't
Right.
just say done very quickly. Second thing, in Google interviews, the problem statements are very vague. The initial problem statement is going to be very vague. They want to see how you clarify, like how you gather information, what type of questions you ask when things are uncertain. So don't make any assumptions without communicating. A very good friend of mine, like, he's a better coder than me, but in one of the rounds he made a very basic assumption which he did not communicate. And he thought that yeah, the round was fabulous, he was able to code in 35 minutes, and then everything is nice. But the feedback that came for that round was negative, because the initial step only he assumed something which was not supposed to be. So I think communicating, like, you should do over communication in interviews like these, because but like small things also help. And the interviewer there right now, you don't have in person interviews, so all he knows is what you say. Like, it's really difficult, he's not seeing the way you are thinking or what you are writing. Or like earlier, you have whiteboard, so you do something and he knows that okay, you are going in this direction. Right now all he has is your voice, so do communicate that. And the third thing is, don't over prepare. So whenever you have interviews, let's say you have an interview at 8, stop everything at 7:30. After 7:30, do something like watch a funny blooper you like, watch some stand up comedy, listen to some song, go for a walk or a run. Don't over prepare, because you think that this one question might make the difference, but if like actually you are worth it, it won't make a difference. It will just put your brain in more pressure. So don't do that.
Okay. Thank you. That's a very good advice, Anmol. Now, coming to the last question, and after this question, we'll take up some queries from the comment section because
Yep, yep.
the comment box is filled with the queries of people. So, I just wanted to take this up. If you have any tips for aspiring Googlers.
Yeah, a few things. First of all, if you talk about these things, I see people. Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, you are audible.
Yeah. So, so I see a lot of people asking what we need to do or like something like that. But one thing is, at specifically for Google, the recruiters are really nice. So even my recruiter was really nice. They're gonna explain you each and everything very nicely. They'll give you videos as well, and they won't push you anywhere. They'll always see like your betterment, what is good for you. They'll suggest on their own. So few things that they tell essentially, but that is just before the interview, like when the interview process starts. But essentially, work on your DSA. First point, very important. Have a good, thorough DSA. Apart from that, things like code quality, how you name your variables, how your code looks in general, these things are also considered. You might have a very like working code, but if it doesn't look good, like if it doesn't follow the good practices that essentially are there in the industry, there are going to be points reduced for that. And apart from that, yeah, at Google especially, there is no IDE as such where you code. So there won't be any autofills of functions that you can just put a dot a and then you get a list of all the functions, which generally happens in most of the IDE platforms, even in Geeks for Geeks or other platforms that are there. So that doesn't happen. So when you practice, do take all these things into account as well, because there might be scenarios where you will not remember that okay, there are two functions, let's say substring and substr. What is the difference between the two in the arguments? You know, both of them give you an substring, but exactly what do they do, you need to be that clear. Like you should have that level of clarity on your code, at least in Google, so that because they are not like, there is no helper as such or smart ID, what we say, that will help you. So, and take these one by one. So don't start working on all of them together. Like have a week on, decide that okay, this week I'm just gonna work on my code quality. So my aim is not to solve 10 questions in this week, even if I solve 3 questions, but I'll solve them very nicely with good variable names. I'll build that practice. Then in the next week, you work on something else. Don't just start working on all of them together, because then it will be really difficult.
Okay, okay, great. Uh, so what I have realized so far is having clarity is more important, and you should be well versed with DSA and the basic concepts. Also, even if you're doing something like even if you're not reaching your end goal, the journey towards it is more important, and how you're putting forth the solution and how you're explaining things, right?
Yep, yep, yep.
Okay,
Definitely.
okay. Great. So now taking up some queries from the comment section. Like I said, there are a lot of comments flooding in, so I
Yep,
wanted to
yep, yep.
take them up one by one. Okay. So Rahul wants to know, since you were able to crack McKinsey and company, any such suggestions how to crack case study round? Any specific books you can suggest?
So, as for case study, so McKinsey came to my campus. We did have a case study, but essentially, I did not prepare from any specific book as such for the case study round. It was more of a technical role. So, I think what you mean might be more on the consulting side, because McKinsey does then hire and work in different platforms where they have a consulting org and then they have a technical org. So the case study round might be that difficult for the consulting part. But for me, essentially, we had a case study round, but like it was just normal. a simple situation where you can just break down easily, and they weren't so tough on it. So I did not need any book, but yes, I'll find out and I'll tell you. Please do reach out to me on some other platform. I'll find this out and tell you this.
Yeah, also just to let everybody know, we've added Anmol's LinkedIn profile in the description, so you can reach out to him there. There is another profile also added there. So if you wanna, if after this webinar, if you still have your queries, if you still think they got unanswered, then you can reach out to him directly through his profile. Okay. Next question is, can you explain what is the first step for Google?
Okay. First step will definitely be you telling yourself that, okay, no matter what it takes, I have to get into Google, because again, there are a lot of things like you have an office, so there is no time. You like when you are trying to aim for something like Google, these things you will have to overcome. You have to make your mind mentally strong that no matter what happens, I have to find, let's say, 1 hour per day. No matter what happens, even if I sleep 1 hour less, but I have to make 1 hour every day. That is the first step, and then essentially start with the DSA part. Like there is no other thing apart from DSA that is as important. So first thing is definitely DSA. Like work on your DSA even before you start applying.
Okay. This is also about DSA only. How did you prepare for DSA? Manveen wants to know.
Okay. So again, it's like an overnight journey. Like people think it's an overnight journey, but I started preparing for DSA in 2016, like when we were in second year of college. And since then, I do keep in touch. Like there have been times where it's 6, 7 months you're out of touch, but yeah, you keep preparing DSA. For example, right now I know a particular topic in DSA in which I know I don't need to practice it that much, because over the years I've practiced it so much that I just need to brush it up a bit, like 3, 4 questions, and I'll be good with it. So in that case, like that might be different for you. You might be comfortable in some topic, and you will definitely know that these topics is something I need to work more on. So whatever your topic is, work more on that, invest more on that. And in general, if you want to DSA, like I think Geeks for Geeks has like really nice plan on how to start, on how to prep for DSA from scratch, so you can follow that if you're a beginner. Else, you know your topics, you have a basic understanding. Okay, there are arrays, strings, trees, something, something. I'm good at these, and I'm not so good at these. So that's
Right.
essentially.
Okay. Alice wants to know if a university degree is necessary to get into Google.
So you should have a degree. Like which university, I don't think is necessary, but at least having a degree is necessary.
Okay. Again, which source would you suggest to prepare DSA?
Fifth source. So, Danish, again, like if you have, like there is no end to DSA essentially. So if you have limited time, again, focus on areas where you can narrow it down. So in on Geeks for Geeks, you have like Google company specific question sets. Apart from that, there are other platforms as well where you have company specific questions. So if you have limited time and your aim is just Google, definitely go for that. And if you are in general looking to go for a change, then I don't think, like just keep on practicing the topics which are arrays, strings, linked list, trees, graphs, and few of the other algorithms that are there. That's pretty much it.
Right. Lalit says, is Google Summer of Code helpful for employee in Google if he gets good marks in that?
So Lalit, I just became an employee of Google. I'll this summer I'll find this out. Like I am not sure exactly what this is, but I have no clue what this is. So I'll find out. I have just become an employee in Google, so I'll find it out and answer it.
Okay. Which language, CPP or Java, best for DSA to for Google placements?
Oh, so funny is like whatever language is comfortable for you. I personally have worked on JavaScript. No one ever chooses. Even my technical recruiter was a little bit astonished that, are you sure you want to go with JavaScript? I was like, yeah, I'm sure. for competitive. But since I was comfortable in that language, I've been working on that language for past 3.5 years. So I did even ask myself this question that in college I used to do C++. Now I have JavaScript. Should I go to C++? Then I was like, you have worked on JavaScript for 3.5 years. At least value something of that time, that you are not even this confident that you'll go to some language which you used to use, like treat it in general. And essentially it worked out for me. So I don't think language is a barrier as such. Whatever language works for you, you think you are confident in that, go with that.
Okay. Payal wants to know how can she prepare for Google internship.
Okay. Again, Payal, first of all, check out the careers page and their LinkedIn page. The careers page do have updates when they come out with some internship program. So, for me, I did not essentially get to know during my time when I was looking for internships when in exactly how could we apply for Google. But yeah, now as I know, they do post updates on LinkedIn page and their careers page. And apart from that, yeah, DSA is the main thing. So like the process still remains the same. How you apply might be different.
Okay, Kartikeya says, how can I prepare for Foo Bar challenge and what are the chances of getting call for interview after the challenge?
Again, I don't know what a FUBAR challenge is. Like very competitive right now in the industry of competitive coding. I generally like don't do active like competitive coding, essentially participating in these challenges. So no clue.
Okay. ZP says, she she has already passed the first round of interview. What would be your advice for the upcoming interviews for her?
So, Zippy, few things for you. Do connect with your recruiter and ask her or him for the feedback for your first interview. The whatever the interviewer is, he would have shared some feedback. So take that and work on that. Like that is the first thing you should do. If let's say there is a concern on your speed or on your problem solving skill or something of that sort, code quality, work on that first and like try that doesn't repeat, because if some feedback repeats itself in any of the four interviews, it is a big question mark. That essentially means that you don't have an eye, or that was just not that good, but that is something which is hurting with you. So do work on your feedback. And apart from that, like the same things, if it's your first round, just do a little bit of practice essentially on different types of things like trees, arrays, strings, linked list, a question of each, and I think you should be great. And all the best. I hope you also become an Oogler.
Yeah. Rajneesh says he has 11 years of experience in Microsoft technologies. So, will they consider his profile? What do you think?
Like Rajnesh, like pretty sure they'll consider your profile, but again that depends what is your current role and for what role you are applying for in Google. If those two match and you are able to like justify the bridge between those two, they'll definitely consider your profile. Like that's no doubt.
Okay. This is a very funny comment. People are asking for your referrals.
Yeah. Sure, Shubhanshu Agarwal, I'll surely refer you. Please do ping me. If possible, I'll refer you.
Someone wants to know how many rounds of interviews were there.
So yeah, essentially one was the screening round. Apart from that, 4 rounds of DSA and one behavioral round, which is also known as the Googliness round. So there were 6 rounds on which you are actually judged, and like or from where the feedback matters. After these, there is another team fit round essentially, but that is not judged anywhere. It is just that Google has a lot of products. So essentially, which team suits you the best? It's a good, like, it's an opportunity for you to choose like which team you want to work with.
Okay. Mosam wants to know if competitive programming is necessary for FANG.
Yeah, Mosam, like what I have seen, like in general, like until unless it's a very extreme case, like we do hear something like a very small child, like a 10-year child did something and then it came up somewhere and he got some offer. But in general, like competitive coding is the first thing and the only thing that at least the fan companies consider.
Okay. Nianshi Agrawal says, does participating in Google Kickstart or Hashcode help to get placed in Google?
It'll indirectly help you. It will not directly help you essentially, but when you take part in events like this, it does build your profile, your resume a bit, and you also get an exposure essentially. So that will help you in like the process of getting into Google. But essentially, just doing that part, like participating in Kickstart or Hashcode, won't get you into Google.
Okay. Mahima says, as a fresher, how can she begin the journey to approach Google? Also, will they consider someone who needs to learn everything from the scratch?
So, funny thing, Google doesn't work on any of the languages that we discussed. They have their internal frameworks which are on top of those languages. So, they are similar, but they are not essentially the same. And in the whole interview process, they don't even ask you that what language do you work on or what language do you know, what all languages do you know, and there is no expectation of that. They're expecting, like, it's a good thing that you have to learn from scratch. So it essentially means you don't have to unlearn anything, which is a good thing. A lot of times it's a problem when you know something in the wrong way. It's difficult for them to teach you a new thing of doing the same thing in a new way. So it's good. But yeah, Mahima, all the best. I am sure you'll also make it to Google. And there is, don't think like this, something from learning from scratch.
Yeah. Apoorv says if he doesn't have very good projects in his resume, but he's good with DSA, will it affect his chances of getting selected?
So again, Apur, how do you define a good project or no? Because essentially, it in the rounds, definitely it's the DSA that matters. They don't essentially, at least in the coding rounds, ask you for your projects. But again, if your resume is not up to that standard, essentially, you might have difficulty in getting till the interview part. So things like just including whatever coding competitions you participate, include all that in your resume that okay, in such and such competition or codathon I was able to get this rank or I did this. That will obviously improve your resume, and then that will get you your interview round, and then you are already good at DSA, so that shouldn't be a problem for you from there.
Okay. Mandira says she's in first year. Can you please elaborate on Google's STEP program? Also, should she participate in Google Hashcode in first year itself?
Okay, so Mandira, like these things, at least the hash code part, I have no clue what Google hash code is. But like, if you think so, don't think like nothing is like a magic wand or something that if you do this particular thing, you will get into Google. Don't be so output driven. I'll say be a little more process driven, as in do things which you, for example, like who are fitness freaks, they do daily go to a gym. You won't see any change daily, but they believe in the process that okay, if I go and exercise daily and if I work out daily, then over a period of time I'm gonna get healthier and I'm gonna get all those muscles that I'm looking for. Similarly, it's here as well that we know the process that DSA is important, and things like having a good resume which gets shortlisted is important. So we'll work on these things instead of looking for something which just gets us in a tunnel which will get us to the end of, like, which ends inside Google. So be a little more process driven so that even if you don't land in Google, you might land in Amazon or Netflix or Meta or some other great company. So I'll say like I have again no clue about Google hash code, but be a little more process driven. And since it's first year, you have a lot of time, like you have ample amount of time, so you can give that time to yourself.
Okay, fair enough. I'm just skimming through some more questions so that we
Yep,
can
yep.
pick up really important ones. Someone wants to know, is doing a project necessary for applying as an intern in Google?
No, I don't think so. Like doing a project is necessary as such. As long again, like as long so what does a project do? You'll write your project is reflected in your resume. So if you are able, instead of like you don't have a project, so that area is empty in your resume. If you're able to replace it with something which is equivalent or adds a really good value to your resume, technically, it's good.
Okay. Sneha says, other than DSA, what is important for a Google interview?
Okay. So apart from DSA, like DSA is like 80-85%. Apart from that, things like your code quality, having variable names like XYZ gets like doesn't get you in Google. Having a proper good code so that even without knowing the problem statement, if someone just looks at your code, they'll get an essence of what the actual problem is that you are trying to solve. One thing. Second thing is in the googliness round, which is essentially the behavioral round, things like how you collaborate in a team. So even if you get inside Google, the someone might be on a lower band than you, how you take their input and how you work in a team, how you contribute to a team, how do you take criticism. Essentially, this is one major thing that Google checks is how do you take criticism. Like if someone comes and tells you that what you did is not like, I don't like what you did, and you should do something about it, how you take that thing. Things like these are also very important in the whole process, but these things will require a much less effort essentially to work upon and to prepare, but compared to DSA. But yeah, when you ask in terms like questions like this, these things are also really important.
Okay. Musabir says, if anyone is from tier 3 college, how can he prepare for the top product based companies?
So, if you are aiming again for product based companies, not just the FANG part, you can do projects on what you interest. Even if it's a tier 3 college, I assume that you are passionate about coding and you love to solve problems. They can be of any kind, competitive, non competitive, a random, like you can make a website which solves something for a very small portion of your college even. But having projects like these and then building up your resume, you can go and apply in product companies. So yeah, DSA is one part, but apart from FANG, there are also really great product companies which don't give essentially that much value to DSA, but they see what your projects are and other things which are there, like how do you work, how good you are in what you do, and you'll definitely get into a top product based company.
Okay. Mahima says, when and how can we apply for Google?
So like go to the careers page, choose the filters, like they have really nice drop downs, choose whatever you think, and then finally you have a list of 4 5 roles. Do read the rules properly, because then like apply for the one that fits you the best. And I think from there, or maybe if you know someone who is in Google, you can tell them the job ID essentially, and they can refer you for that particular job ID.
Okay. Alabura Osman says, please recommend mentors or mentorship program if you have any in mind.
So essentially, find mentors around you, like wherever you are in college. So I have been lucky enough to have found some person or the other somewhere to whom I can reach out to in times of need when you have no clue essentially. and they have given me honest reviews and honest opinions, even when like I wouldn't agree with them, but still they did come up. So look around you. Like, I think that's the only place. I don't know if I don't know of any good mentors or mentorship programs, and I don't preach any, essentially. So like, do but look around yourself, essentially. You might find someone really great there.
Okay. Shivanshu says, if I prepare DSA, web development, and CP up to a good standard, will I get referrals?
If then how? So you get referrals. So essentially, Shivanshu, if you have good DSA in web dev, you can send out your you can upload your profile on your LinkedIn. I see you are watching us on LinkedIn. So you can put up your resume on your LinkedIn, and then follow Google or whatever company's page you are interested in. Follow them. They obviously will post opportunities, or follow people of that company, essentially managers or recruiters, because these are the first two point of people who will post about openings. And then yeah, you already have your resume out there for the world. So mm, that should get you the referrals that you are looking for. Hello.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
There's a very funny comment here. Students really want to know if you're interested in politics as well.
Yeah, I am very much interested in politics, essentially, but not on a journal scale, as in my close friend circle. So because like, knowing about your state and country politics is also really important. It shouldn't be something you ignore,
Right.
because it does affect us. But then trying to influence people and telling what you think is not something I recommend to a journal platform. But essentially, if you're close to someone and you have a good circle, you should definitely discuss about politics. Yeah, and like Shubhanshu, this is Shubhanshu, no? Yeah, like
Yeah.
Shubhanshu, yeah. This is also considered. This will be considered for your round, because in Google as well, when you get my referral, no, they'll ask you political questions as well.
Yeah. Okay. Shakir says, is lead code enough for Google?
Like, again, check it depends. What, like, is lead code enough? If the question is lead code a good source to prepare for Google? Yeah, definitely it is a good source to prepare for Google. So are other platforms. But like, what do you mean by is lead code enough? Like, you have to go there and practice questions of different things. You cannot just be like, okay, I have, let's say, some subscription and I'll get into Google that. Or if you have solved all questions of one particular area. For example, you have solved all questions of arrays. Is that enough? I've solved all questions of arrays on lead code. Is it enough for Google? No, then it's not enough. But yeah, is lead code a good source? Definitely it's a good source to prepare for Google and any other company as such.
Okay. How many lead code, code chef or GFG questions did you solve? Also, did you take any course for DSA or for interview preparation, etc.? Also, for how long are you practicing DSA?
So essentially for Google, my rounds were just after we have the Flipkart Big Billion Day. So like the 10-12 days of Big Billion Day were all I had. So before them is when the recruiter connected, and she wanted to schedule it next week, but then I explained her that it's like during BBT it will be really difficult for me to take any calls. So we had it just after BBT. So I couldn't at least like give like how much time I would have liked to invest in my preparation. But then yeah, I did streamline a bit. So I remember I did somewhere close to 33 questions, I think. That is what all I had practiced. And then again, like three questions for one particular thing where I'll code perfectly, like no variable, nothing should be wrong. Then three questions which I'll code very fast in 10 minutes or 8 minutes. Then three questions where I am coding on a txt file. I have no editor, nothing. And essentially once you get comfortable in particular thing, you can obviously practice that when you are trying to work on the second thing, because that has become a practice now. So number of questions, it's somewhere around 30 33, I think. And how long is, I think, 14 days, 14 or 15 days.
Okay.
Yeah, 15 days essentially. And yeah, that's it.
Okay. Apoorv says, do we need to prepare for system design also?
So yeah, Apu, I think this is one question which I wanted to. I saw this in the comments as well. Really good question. So yeah, you can take system design. So if let's say you are very good in system design and you think that is a very big positive to have, you can connect and tell your recruiter that out of those 4 rounds, the last round you will opt for system design, and this happens I think for L4 and above. So if someone is applying for L3, then essentially he'll have to go through the DSA round. There is no system design for L3. But if for L4 and above, you can connect with your recruiter, and your last round will be a system design round instead of a DSA. Since I personally didn't want to get into that, I chose DSA for all the rounds.
Okay. Payal wants to know what a good resume contains.
Okay, good resume should contain all your qualities, and it should contain ways to reach out to you. I have seen resumes where people have done everything, but there is no contact number or email. So essentially, even if someone likes them, how do they contact them? Look for typos. I have seen a lot of resumes with typos because you are typing so much, it is very natural. So don't make these mistakes because resume is the first thing someone sees. And let's say if you misspell something like resume only, I have seen like the resume word written incorrectly on a resume. So things like these don't reflect nicely. And apart from that, yeah, whatever you have done, so it's essentially something that tells the other person about you. So if you think you have done something which you will tell the other person in an interview, or if you meet someone, you will tell them that okay, technically I've done this particular thing, then do include that in your resume. Like it does, there is nothing as such good resume, but yeah, like whatever you have done, don't write copy paste and write, because that all, like a lot of people do tend to refer other resumes and like write things that they have no clue of. They get that in an essence, and if they catch that somewhere in the interview, that's like really bad. It reflects really poorly on you. So don't do that essentially. But yeah, and while choosing words, choose words nicely, as in, so if someone searches for keywords like problem solving or data structures or something like these, so the HRs get like hundreds and thousands of resumes every day. So they essentially don't have the time also to go through each and every one of them. So use keywords like these, so that the chances of your resumes coming up on HR screen are much higher.
Okay. Vijay wants to know the important topics to prepare for RAs.
Again, like coming back, arrays, strings, linked list, trees, dynamic programming, and sorting algorithms. Like the basic DSA things that are there generally, which we know in our industry. Just that is enough. Don't need to go and do something out of the box.
Okay. Um, uh, I think it's time to wind up the session, but because there are a lot of comments flooding in, so I would just take up one last query and then we can wind it up.
Yeah.
Nikhil says he has 90 days of notice period, so will it affect his candidacy for the role?
At Google, it will not. So at Google, I know that if once you get an offer, that offer is valid for a very long period of time. So essentially, they won't negotiate. So you can tell the recruiter upfront that okay, I have a 90-day notice period, and if you tell the recruiter, it will not be a blocker, at least for Google, is what I know, that you have a 90-day notice period, they'll be okay with it. But just do tell it upfront. Like at the time of, for example, in a lot of teams, when you have team fit round, the manager will ask you that when can you join us, just to get a good, like just to get good feedback from him, so that you get in. Don't say that okay, I can join from next month, and then later on tell them that okay, 90 days is my notice period. Just be upfront that I have a 90-day of notice period. So this is the date when I can join. It shouldn't be a problem as such.
Okay.
Sidra, can I answer one question? Like
Yeah, yeah,
someone
sure,
did
sure.
ask, and I
Go ahead.
think
Yeah.
so. Someone did ask what is L3, L4, and I just realized that a lot of people like are new here. So L3 is something like the starting software developer role. It's the starting band that you have in Google or in FAANG companies essentially. And then L4 is somewhere like SD2, and then L5 is your tech architect, SD3 level, like as such. So I think someone did ask L3, L4. So L4 is the starting point.
Okay,
Yep.
okay, great. Yeah, okay. So it's time to wind up the session. We are already short of time, but I hope all the questions who were that were put in the comments, the queries, got answered very descriptively, and I hope you guys are satisfied with the answers of your questions. But still, if you have any questions that you think went unanswered, then you can always directly message either us or Anmol to his LinkedIn, or you can just put in the comments again, and we'll take them up. So thanks a lot everyone for joining this session, and I hope it was really helpful to each one of you. And all the best, Anmol, for in your future endeavors. And we are really hoping to have another webinar with you really soon, when you probably switch to maybe some other company, maybe some of your dream company, and then we can call you again to our webinar.
Definitely, definitely. So it was great coming here and interacting with people. I think I would love to come back here and share my experience again.
Yeah, thank you.
Think, yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, yeah, okay, 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 great. Thanks, Anmol. Bye.
Okay. Thank you. Bye bye.
And thanks a lot everyone for joining in. Also, if you have any queries, you can drop them up in the comment section, or you can directly message Anmol. I'm sure the queries will be resolved. Thank you once again for joining in.